Happy Friday, everybody. You are watching The Sweat. I'm your host, Jesse Cofield, here riding solo once again. We got a lot coming your way today. So we got MLB Best Bets and Price Check for this evening's slate. Going to do a UFC 290 preview. That'll be fun. NASCAR preview with Jeff and Pierce. Can't wait to get into that. But we're going to start with our boy, Jeff Pratt, who is here for an NBA Summer League / off-season update. So talking about some of the latest news. And Jeff, the news that's on everyone's mind, okay? The moment we've been waiting for. Victor Wembanyama, he's here. He's hopefully spectacular. He's hopefully going to perform without Brittney Spears in the crowd. What should we expect to see tonight?
Oh man, this is going to be kind of a boring answer, so I apologize here, but I'm expecting a lot of people to have unrealistic expectations for what we see from Wemby tonight. You know, at the end of the day, this is a 19-year-old kid with no prior NBA experience. You know he's going to be targeted by a lot of these other players in Vegas who have something to prove. I mean, Wemby, he could step on the floor, play one quarter, and show enough to be sat for the entire summer league and the entire preseason, because they're going to be very cautious with him. But there are guys out here who are fighting for their NBA lives. I'm expecting his opponents to be extremely physical with him, similar to what we saw with Chet Holmgren through a couple of games so far in the summer league, same with last year, but to an even more intense degree. What's most important for me to see from Victor today is that he's looking to make the right decisions quickly with confidence. You know, the shooting, defense, all of those aspects of his game will come with time. They're going to translate eventually. He's got those skills, but he needs to have the confidence and play the right way for that to happen. San Antonio is going to be extremely methodical with his development. This is a team with an incredible player development program, but they take things at a very slow pace. I said it's going to be boring. This is a very boring organization, but there's a reason they've won so many championships. They do things slow. They do things the right way. I would imagine they don't want to see him trying to do too much all at once tonight, even if he is capable of that against this type of competition. So I'm expecting a very solid debut, good numbers, a good outing, but it might be disappointing compared to what the expectations are because they are just so astronomically high.
Okay, so Pratt not expecting any fireworks. Got it. On the other side is the Hornets and Brandon Miller. We did see, strong, solid play in his first game in the California Classic. 18 points, but then game 2, 6 points, 4 turnovers. So what do you want to see from Miller tonight, and what was your takeaway kind of from those first 2 games?
Yeah, and even the stats in the first game were good, but he scored a lot of those points. I think 12 of them were in the fourth quarter when the Hornets were already getting blown out. So the defense wasn't necessarily where it was for the first 3 quarters of that game. So I know I've said a lot of not bad, but I've criticized Brandon Miller quite a bit on this show already. Now I'm starting to feel a little bad because he's clearly not right mentally in terms of confidence at this point. So what I'm looking to see from him tonight is just getting his confidence back to where it needs to be. That is the most important thing for him right now. He's obviously been thrown off mentally, and that's leaked into every aspect of his game. He's got 15 fouls through 2 games. That's awful. You only get 6 in an NBA games. He's averaging 7.5 per game in the summer league right now. He's lucky they give 10 because he would have fouled out quite quickly in both of these games. But it's not even as much about the fouls for me. It's more about his reaction to those fouls and his attitude after picking them up. It seems like it's completely throwing off his game. He's complaining after every whistle against him. It seems like he's letting the little things get to him right now. And before the draft, I said my biggest concern for Miller was his playmaking translating to the NBA level, making the right play off the dribble, getting other guys involved. And I still think that is the most overarching need for him. But at the moment, the most pressing need is getting his confidence back. And when he gets that back, the shooting will return. He'll start to shoot more. He's not taking that many shots in an NBA game. And this guy is a professional scorer. That's what he was drafted number 2 overall to do. When you are a score first player, you need to see the ball go through the hoop in order to gain that confidence back in the other aspects of your game. When he starts to score, the playmaking will eventually get there, the defense will get there, the energy and attitude will pick up. So for him tonight, he needs to see the ball go through the basket, and it's that simple.
All right, a lot of guys we have our eyes on. Scoot the Thompsons, Chet Holmgren as well, returning from injury last year. So what other players are you watching during Summer League, and what do you want to see from them?
Yeah, you mentioned a couple of them. I'm interested in two sets of young players. The first is the duo of Scoot Henderson and Shaden Sharp. I've been high on Scoot for a long time. I've expressed that on this show. He's just an extremely exciting player to watch. And so is Shaden Sharp. I know a lot of people weren't watching Portland Trailblazers games last year, especially after Damian Lillard sat out to end the season. But when that happened, Shaden Sharp took over. He was fantastic for this team as the de facto number one option, despite the fact that they were horrible to watch. He was putting on a show. These are two high flying, exciting young players. They give Blazers fans plenty of reason to be excited about the post Damian Lillard era. And then the other pair of young players I'm looking at, they're not playing on the same teams, but it is the Thompson twins. It seems like the excitement surrounding Amon is much stronger than Asar, but they're both really intriguing to me from a developmental reason. Phenomenal athletes, really high IQs, students of the game. You see those interviews of them picking out crazy NBA stats. They clearly know basketball to an insane degree, all the intangibles you're looking for in an NBA prospect. That said, the lack of talent they were facing compared to other prospects in this draft prior to getting to the league is an obvious concern. Overtime Elite is a fantastic program. I know a lot of people in that organization. Their facilities are top notch. They do things the right way in terms of player development, but the competition that those prospects play compared to being in college or overseas or even in the G League, it's not even close. So I need to see these guys play against that higher level of competition and do it consistently.
All right, well, we've seen a few teams in the California and Utah mini leagues. Kings already have won 2 games, but they shut down Keegan Murray, who's averaging 35 a game. Do you have a bet for us tonight? Kings only 2.5-point favorites.
Yeah, I'm staying away from Sacramento. Glad that Keegan Murray's not going to be suiting up much anymore. He didn't have much to show. I'm taking the points with the Spurs against the Hornets. I don't even need to see San Antonio play, to be honest, to have full confidence in this bet. As it turns out, if you are a horrible NBA team, there's a good chance that your summer league is also going to be horrible. That translates, and that's exactly what the case is for Charlotte. They've been blown out both games so far in the summer league. I understand it's early, but it is just unwatchable basketball at times on their side. The only positive aspect I've seen from that team is Kai Jones, who has always had elite athleticism, great center, but just hasn't really put it together so far. It seems like the game is starting to slow down for him a little bit, especially on the defensive end. He showcased some really impressive effort and plays through the couple of games we've seen from him so far. That said, there are 5 guys on the court for a basketball game and a team, and the product we've seen from Charlotte so far has been really, really ugly. Just a ton of turnovers. It doesn't help when the guy you took number 2 overall has the ball in his hands a lot, and he's consistently making the wrong decisions, as we talked about earlier with Brandon Miller. But I expect that trend where there are a couple of individual good performances, but the team basketball is just not meshing whatsoever for this Hornets team. In Summer League, you need to focus on the little things. They're not doing that, and they're facing a Spurs team that we know how San Antonio runs their organization. They'll come out here not doing anything flashy, focusing on the little stuff. I think that that's going to result in another blowout win for the Spurs.
All right, Pratt, well, big news yesterday was DeJounte Murray agreeing to an extension with the Hawks. Hawks locked up a good piece, but they traded Collins. Still some uncertainty with Trae Young. So how do we feel about the Hawks' direction at this point?
Yeah, it's interesting that you said you feel about how do we feel about the Hawks' direction, because they are kind of directionless at this point, right, Jesse? And it's very interesting dilemma, because it was one of the worst kept secrets in the league that they were under an ownership mandate to get under the luxury tax, which played a role in them trading John Collins for nothing. Obviously, he's a much better player than what they got in return from the Utah Jazz. I think Atlanta is very much in a wait and see situation right now. I think that DeJounte Murray extension is fantastic. Paying a number 2 option, a legitimate number 2 option who can be that guy on a championship caliber team, $30 million a year, especially with this new CBA and the new contracts, as we've seen the inflation in them over the last couple of years. That's a really good deal. But Atlanta, they haven't really improved so far this offseason. In fact, you can make the argument they got worse because they traded one of their key players and got nothing in return. So I think the Hawks are very much in a situation where they'll say, hey, we're going to start this season. Trae Young and DeJounte Murray, they showed flashes last year, but they weren't consistently on the same page. Can they work that out? And if they can work that out, then they can start to address moves to make the roster better around them. But if they can't, hey, they just extended DeJounte Murray on a really good contract. Trae Young's had a lot of issues with the Hawks organization. Maybe they look into shopping him, not necessarily at the deadline, but next offseason. So they've got some major decisions to make, and there's not a lot of clarity right there.
All right, let's switch gears here, Jeff, and mosey on across the pond where Wimbledon is going on. What's a bet from the women's side you're looking at for this afternoon or possibly tomorrow?
Yeah, so I'm rolling with my tried and tested strategy that I use when betting on matches involving heavy favorites, so you can utilize this moving forward, which is taking the under on their opponent's game totals. Implementing the strategy early in majors, specifically on the women's side, has proven to be really effective just because the top players are so dominant compared to the rest of the field. This time, I'm honing in on the match between Iga Swiatek and Petra Martic. Throughout her relatively short career, Swiatek hasn't been fantastic on grass. In fact, it has been statistically her worst surface, but that hasn't looked like the case so far in this tournament. She has cruised through the first 2 rounds here in London, and now she faces an opponent in Martic who she has consistently handled in the past. They faced off twice throughout their careers. Each time Martic has been held under 5.5 games. She hasn't even got to 5 games in both of the matches they've had. That's the total game prop set for her in this one. I expect that trend to continue, so I would take Petra Martic under 5.5 total games won.
All right, how about on the men's side here, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm looking at pretty much the similar strategy because you have that opportunity to bet on a favorite here in Novak Djokovic, who is facing Stan Wawrinka. That's going to be a fun match to watch. Obviously, 2 incredibly legends of the game. Wawrinka is not what he used to be. He hasn't been the same player for 5 or 6 years now, but it's always fun. He can get up for these matches. That being said, Djokovic is going to cruise in this one. He has been dominating at Wimbledon over the llast 4 years. He's won 4 straight tournaments here. He's handled Wawrinka with relative ease over the last couple of years. Stan's player prop in terms of total games won is set at 11.5. Assuming this is going to be straight sets, I would say he's going to hold them under, so you can get that at -120 on DraftKings Sportsbook right now. And quickly going to the future side, Novak Djokovic, as of right now at least, he's -165 to win the entire tournament. You're not going to get better odds than that. And there's a reason this guy has won 4 straight Wimbledon tournaments. His biggest competitor, Carlos Alcaraz, is a great young player, but grass just happens to be arguably his worst surface here. So as long as Djokovic plays at his highest level, this number, which you can get right now before his 3rd round match kicks off today, is very, very appealing.
All right, good stuff, Jeff. Appreciate it as always. And as Jeff knows, we are still waiting on the Lillard trade. We're all just sitting around waiting.
Oh, yeah.
And the media source wars are heating up the longer it drags on, okay? Twitter, threads, it's all going down. So let's listen to Le Batard and friends discuss how it heats up.
This is courtesy of Jeremy Taché, who forwarded me this tweet, which is a quote from Adrian Wojnarowski. Dame's agent, Aaron Goodwin, has been calling prospective trade partners and warning against trading for him, team executive told ESPN. Goodwin is telling organizations outside of Miami that trading for Lillard is trading for an unhappy player. And it's funny because that's what we said all along. We knew. And I say it again, Adrian knew. He knows what the deal is, but what he is engaging in is protecting one of his closest sources by giving them cover by saying, well, there's no way he's going to go to Miami, and coming up with ridiculous premises like San Antonio could be a dark horse. It's all poppycock, right?
But, okay, a journalist doing an agent's work for him on behalf of a television network
franchise. Doing a franchise's work.
But you're talking about Aaron Goodwin, too,
No.
Like, that
he's not doing Aaron Goodwin's work there.
No, he's actually working against because
Goodwin.
he's kind of lashing out at Aaron Goodwin.
Yes.
Because he wants to will this into existence.
Yes.
This is something that Woj said yesterday on ESPN. Quote, there could be a point where Portland looks around and says Miami is the best offer we have. Portland's canvassing the market, seeing if they can come up with a package better than Miami's best package. That doesn't mean Miami has offered their best package yet. this takes time. No, what that means is Miami has the best offer right now.
And please give us a little bit more, Miami. That's what that also means.
That's what that means.
Give us
More
a little bit more.
poppycock.
Welcome back to the Sweat. It is time for us to get into today's MLB slate with our MLB panel. That would be DraftKings contributor Gary and Thorne and Paul Bruno here to help us out with the best DFS plays in each price range. Okay, so we're going to start with a pitcher who's over 8K. So Gary, which pitcher do you want to pay up for this evening?
Yeah, it's an interesting slate when it comes to pitching. Not that there's not a lot of good pitchers, but it's rare you see a slate this big that doesn't have a single pitcher over 10K. Although I think there's a case to be made that Zach Gallen should be over 10K. He has struggled in his last 2 starts, but that notwithstanding, he's just simply been one of the best pitchers in baseball the past 18 months. Gallen has a 3.15 ERA this season that is backed up by an even better 2.83 FIP. And even though he gave up 4 earned runs in his last outing against the Angels, he struck out 12, which is pretty indicative of who Zach Gallen is as a pitcher. He is striking out almost 10 guys per 9 this season. He has a swinging strike rate that is 13%. That is a career high for Gallen. And he's going up against the Pirates, who, yes, gave him his worst start of the season in 2023, but that was 2 months ago. The Pirates have the 4th highest strikeout rate in baseball across the past 2 weeks. I just think Gallen's in a smash spot tonight.
All right, Gary likes Gallen. Paul, who do you like for your pitcher over 8K?
Jesse, you forgot to plug RotoWire, so I'm going to mention it a few times today just to punish you a little bit.
Okay.
Look, there's a number of pitchers in this range that have tough matchups, and some are even opposing each other. I'm not planning to use any of those guys, so when I make those eliminations, I land on Zach Gallen of Arizona, and it's pretty timely for me because I'm going to go to Arizona right after this hit today. I'm leaving on the weekend. So there's staff ace, big strikeout guy. 120 Ks and 111 innings pitched, pacing a reeling Pirates squad that's 6-17 in their last 23 games. Only once since opening day has Gallen pitched less than 5 innings, so the win probability gives me a real good feeling here to spend that money on him. Couple that with a nice strikeout total, and he should produce a high DK game total at this spot against the reeling Pirates. So the RotoWire Optimizer, for instance, recognizes him as the second best option at 19.44 points. The top one is Carlos Rodon, who's just coming off a 60-day injury list, so I can't trust him to go deep in the game, even if it's against the Cubs.
Okay, Paul Bruno of RotoWire.com. Which infielder over 4,500 do you like?
I like a couple of guys here. First, Corey Seager continues to be swinging a white-hot bat, ranking at the top of today's RotoWire projections. There I go again. Should be well worth the $6,200 price tag, coming off a 30-day period where he's raking 385 batting average, 19 extra base hits in that streak, including 5 dingers. And he gets the platoon edge against Washington's Trevor Williams, a righty who's allowed plenty of contact. For more excellent value in this range, I look for a power bat that's also hitting for average in this spot, and I land on Freddie Freeman. On the season, he's batting at a 320 clip, and his OPP is just a shade under 40%. He's been even better than that in the last little while, with 13 hits in his last 9 games. That includes a streak of 5 multi-hit games. The opposition tonight is provided by the Cross City Angels, who have lost 7 of their last 8 and are apparently in their annual summer swoon with a rash of key injuries to boot. Freeman is priced at $6,300 tonight, and he'll definitely be in my lineup.
All right, Gary, and who's definitely going to be in your lineup?
Well, we joked pre-show that Paul and I are generally in lockstep. I also have Corey Seager as my number 1 infield option for a lot of the reasons Paul laid out. I mean, he's just been arguably the best left-handed bat in baseball, not named Shohei Ohtani, so far this season. He's got a 200 WRC plus against right-handed pitching, and that right-handed pitcher tonight is Trevor Williams, who has had a really tough time in his last couple of starts. He's giving up 2.4 opponent home runs per 9 in his last 6 games. That equates out to a 6.23 FIP in that span of time. I will say Williams does have reverse splits. I mean, he's bad against both lefties and righties, but he's worse against righties. So maybe, if you're a little worried about ownership for Corey Seager, Marcus Semien, who's in a bit of a slump right now, might be a way to pivot that not a lot of people are going to exploit. And Josh Young, he has been better against southpaws than he has been against righties, but Josh Young is just a really, really good option. And he still feels a little underpriced considering he was an all-star at just $5K.
All right, Gary, and how about an outfielder over $4,500 that you got to slot into your lineup?
I think you have to use Luis Robert. And I know Jordan Montgomery has been fantastic his last 2 months. I mean, he really has been the only thing about the Cardinals that has been any good in that span of time. But Luis Robert, one, he's the hottest hitter in baseball. Two, he's just an absolute machine when it comes to hitting left-handed pitching. He's hitting 343 with a 203 WRC plus against lefties in 2023. 6 home runs in 80 plate appearances within the split for Robert Jr. Again, Montgomery's good, but he's left-handed at the end of the day. Luis Robert, just in general, since the beginning of May, is hitting over 300 with a 175 WRC plus. He is just locked in right now. He is turning into the guy we all thought he was going to be back in 2018, 2019. It's really fun to see.
All right, Paul, outfielder over 4,500 that you got to have in your lineup. Who is it?
I look at a couple of guys and I wonder, I don't think their ownership's going to be that high. So keep an eye out for Lane Thomas of the Nationals. He's having a great run over the last 30 days with 39 hits and 129 at-bats. That translates to a 355 batting average and a 381 on base, including 18 extra base knocks, 5 of those homers. He costs only $5,000 despite these great totals. Get his hot stick into your lineup. And I also like a guy who struggled early in the season, Brian Buxton, but he's on the best streak of his season with 7 hits in the last 20 at-bats in the past week, including 2 that went yard among his 3 extra base hits. He gets a platoon edge against the Orioles' Cole Irwin, who sports a 6.32 ERA and a 1.69 WHIP. Buxton comes into play for $5,400 tonight, and I think he's going to definitely be in my lineup.
All right, Paul, how about a value play under 3,500? Got to save the people some money here.
And there's a couple of guys out here that will fit the bill for me. I got Jarren Duran of the Red Sox going in at $3,500 tonight for his matchup against the Oakland Double A's. He's on a hot streak with 11 hits in his last 5 starts, batting in the Bo Sox leadoff spot. He gets the platoon edge against Oakland starter Luis Medina, who sports a 6.37 ERA and a 1.64 WHIP. I also like the Nationals outfielder Stone Garrett for only $2,500. Another intriguing option because he's on a heater right now with 6 hits in his last 16 at-bats over the last couple of weeks, including 2 homers and 4 extra base knocks. He gets the platoon edge against Rangers starter Cody Bradford tonight.
All right, Gary, in value play under 3,500, where are you going?
Well, one of my favorite things to do is punt at catcher, and Patrick Bailey has been a fantastic option to punt at catcher, especially when the Giants are facing a left-handed pitcher. Patrick Bailey wasn't supposed to be the young catcher who was revolutionizing the position for the Giants this season, but that's exactly what he's been. Really, he's been great overall, but again, he's a switch hitter who prefers batting from the right-hand side. In fact, he prefers it so much, he's got a 333 isolated power and a 512 WOBA against Southpaws so far this season. I just think he's in a really nice spot tonight against Austin Gomber, who, yes, Gomber is at his worst when having to pitch in Colorado, but it's not like he's been good when the Rockies have been on the road either. He's got a 6.51 expected ERA so far this season. You can pretty much use any right-handed Giant you want, but I do think the switch-hitting Patrick Bailey at 3,500 is your best option.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. Enjoy your weekends. Quick break here, and then we will be talking UFC 290 storylines with VSiN's first strike host, Dave Ross. That's coming up next. to The Sweat. I'm joined now by VSiN's First Strike host, Dave Ross. Dave, great to have you here. We know you're on West Coast time, so it's still a little early in the morning for you.
It's a little bit early, but, once you have that first cup of coffee, we can just kind of I think we can neutralize the transition of the time zone difference. So I think we're good now.
You got to be drinking iced coffee, though, right? Isn't it like it's 8:30 in the morning in Vegas, but it's probably already like 100 degrees?
No. I can't do the iced coffees anymore. I got to keep the weight down in case I have to get called into action if there's a fighter that misses weight. That's the way I look at it.
All right, you know what? We like a man who's always ready, okay? Always ready. All right, let's break down some UFC 290 stuff here. So before we get into your betting card and best bets, what are some of the major storylines that you're looking at as we roll into this weekend?
I think really when you look at the co-main and the main event here, and you've got two Mexican-born champions here at 125 pounds and 145 pounds, I do think that'll be one of the overriding themes of the night. And the reason is Brandon Moreno was the first ever Mexican-born champion at 125 pounds. Then Alexa Grasso did the same thing when she beat Valentina Shevchenko at 125 pounds in the women's division. And then all of a sudden, Yair Rodriguez, who will be fighting Alexander Volkanovski in the main event, he gets the interim belt. And we know the Mexican lineage when it comes to fighting, certainly in boxing circles. And now to see it in the UFC with not one, not two, but three Mexican-born champions right now, there's never been a better time to be a practitioner in mixed martial arts if you're from Mexico. And I know how proud they are of that. Let's see if they can both keep those straps. At least Yair tried to get all the belts on one shoulder, if you will, from the interim and the main belt, if he can beat Volkanovski, which would be no easy task.
All right, now let's get into some specific fights here. So Jack Della Maddalena has had some big DFS nights over the last 4 matches, all getting the knockout or submission in the first round. Do you see that happening again versus Josiah Harrell? What's a bet you're looking at in this one? Minus 165 on the DK Sportsbook for Della Maddalena to win by KO in the first round. So odds are it is another quick one.
It should go that way. But here's where we know that Jack Della Maddalena is now a made man. Because now he can just go by JDM, right? And once you go straight initials, you know all of a sudden that your game is elevated big time in the UFC. You can go back to George St. Pierre, becomes GSP, and then arguably one of the greatest fighters we've ever seen in mixed martial arts, certainly a top 5 guy we've seen in the UFC. I don't know that JDM is ready. Laying 10-1 on him to win the fight. I don't think that's smart for your bankroll. But you mentioned it. I would look for inside the distance props. And certainly, even though he did have a submission his last time out, and it was really impressive against Randy Brown, the Rude Boy, I would think ground and pound is more likely the way he gets it. I'd look for JDM to get this done via KO, TKO, or DQ.
All right, so Bo Nickel was set to fight Tresean Gore, right? Okay, but Gore's out with an injury. Val Woodburn steps in. Woodburn's 7-0, but very clear underdog here with one of the biggest odds in UFC history. So Nickel's minus 2,400 right now on the money line. How do you see this one playing out? Is there any value here? Is there a bet that catches your eye?
Well, here's the thing again. When you look at a guy like Bo Nickel, who's really a fast tracker here in the division, right? And so you mentioned that it was supposed to be Tresean Gore in there. That would have been a big step up for Bo in competition. And now all of a sudden you get a guy being thrown into the organization. It feels like a sacrificial lamb here, even though he is 7-0 in other organizations. No way I'm weighing, as you mentioned, the biggest price point we've ever seen in the UFC. Just don't do it. Because crazier things have happened. I've seen it before, where all of a sudden you go back to Conor McGregor against Dustin the Diamond Poirier, where he gets up after being dominated in the first round, takes one misstep, blows out his ankle, fight's over. I've seen this happen more than one time. So all of a sudden, when you see crazy things happen with injury, I don't think Bo Nickel's in any danger of losing this fight. But injury is a real thing. You don't want to be on the wrong side of the biggest number that you'd have to lay in the history of the UFC just to get $100 on the backside here. So to me, look for a submission price. I saw him today, still over $2 for Bo Nickel, but it's much better than laying 25-1 or 30-1. So look for Bo Nickel via sub at over $2, a much, much easier price point for me to get to get down on that instead of laying 25 or 30-1.
Okay, well, the co-main event is the flyweight match between Brandon Moreno Alexandre Pantoja. So how live of an underdog is Pantoja here? Is plus 180 on the DraftKings Sportsbook.
To me, very live. And again, the people, we do the First Break podcast on VSiN every week, and there's differing of opinions on this. Because look, Brandon Moreno, as I mentioned right now, once he became champion here in the UFC, it was a different Brandon Moreno that we saw from the first time around. The guy that got cut from the organization, the guy that lost to Pantoja, if you want to go back to the Ultimate Fighter, got submitted by Pantoja. He has fought him again since then and lost again. And sometimes a weird thing happens. If a fighter knows, and they're the only two that really know, that I've gotten the better of you not once, not twice, they're calling this a rematch. It's actually a third time around. And Moreno has not beaten Pantoja yet. I just wonder what will be different. It is a bigger octagon than when he got submitted at the Ultimate Fighter. So he could use his range, and that's his best weapon against Pantoja. But in a 5-round fight, if the fight does go down to the ground, Moreno knows that Pantoja's already submitted him once. I think there's a possibility of that happening twice. I do think Pantoja is very live in this spot because fighters know when I've beaten you not once but twice, I don't know what's going to be different the third time around.
Let's get to the main event, Dave, okay? Alexander Volkanovski, Yair Rodriguez. It is expected to go the distance. Total round line is 4.5. Who is the last man standing here?
Okay, Volk's a huge favorite, and we get it. Right now, Volkanovski representing Australia, and he might go down as the greatest 145er that we've ever seen. Here's the problem. He just went up in a great fight against Islam Makhachev, and he went up to 155. Now, he lost that fight, but it's almost like he got gambling props, he got street cred for going out of his weight class and up to 155. And even though he was really competitive, and even though people are still singing his praises for that great fight against Makhachev, who might be pound for pound this side of John Jones, the best fighter right now in the UFC, he did lose. And now he comes back down to 145, where a bigger Yair Rodriguez is awaiting him. Yair is a very crafty fighter, okay? So I look for it and I say, if Volk can't get the takedowns, which he normally does get, but we know how dangerous Yair is if the fight stays standing. He's crafty with elbows, sneaky back elbows. Certainly his punching power is very good. And I know that Volkanovski fought a guy like Max Holloway and outstruck Max Holloway. The danger there is trying to do it against a younger guy in Yair Rodriguez. I always worry when great fighters go out of their weight class. We saw with Israel Adesanya, he went up to Jan Blachowicz and lost at 205, came down to 185, and it took him a while. He lost to Alex Pereira to get back to his footing at his old weight class. I just wonder if Volkanovski coming back down is not the same Volk we saw previously at 145. I really think Yair Rodriguez is live, and the longer this fight goes, I think the better chance for an upset, and I think we're going to get one tomorrow night right here in Las Vegas.
Love that. Okay, Dave, last question. What's another fight that you're looking forward to tomorrow, or do you have a bet from another match that you like?
Okay, the one fight that I can't wait to watch is the ruthless one, Robbie Lawler, he's going to go right to the Hall of Fame when he's done, because this is his last fight against Nico Price. And I know that Robbie should be a $2 underdog. I totally get it. All the numbers favor Nico Price. Much younger, obviously. Robbie now at 41. But this could be a great live betting situation. I actually think Robbie Lawler is very live for the first 5 minutes. If he doesn't get Nico Price out of there in the first 5 minutes, because I think Robbie's going to come out with everything he has for his last fight. He knows he's going to hang up those gloves in the octagon when it's all said and done. If he doesn't win in the first round, look for a live number on Nico Price. So I think it's kind of a two-way market there. Robbie Lawler, round one, where the 41-year-old legend that he is and the Hall of Famer that he is, gets everything he's got. And if he survives 5 but can't get Nico out of there, I'd look for Nico Price in the last 10 minutes if the fight even gets out of the second round.
I love it. Dave, thank you. Awesome breakdown of everything UFC 290. You're the man. Be sure to check out his podcast, First Strike, for more. And if you've already seen it and you still want more, here's a little from Anakin Florian.
I think Volkanovski is one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world, right? But let's just not do that, right? I think his volume, his movement is great. I mean, Yair, when he fought Max, he gave up 3 takedowns to Max. He also got outstruck. I think Volkanovski has that same volume, can outstrike Yair, but the space and the speed scares me with Yair. But I do think Volkanovski's a smart fighter. Joe Osborne's a smart coach. They're going to close it down. They're going to get him to the ground. They're going to rough him up. We've obviously seen Volkanovski's submission defense against Brian Ortega. It's pretty good. Even if you get him in something tight, guy ain't quitting. So I like Volkanovski here, but I do think the line is crazy wide. I think Yair has a ton of value for anyone out there. I think he's an exceptional fighter, but I can't pick against Volkanovski at this point. I think he's going to get it done.
Volkanovski minus 390, the favorite right now on DraftKings Sportsbook. Kenny, some people believe that Josh Emmett, given his physical stature, the way he's built, and his style, would have been a tougher matchup for Alexander Volkanovski. I don't agree with that. But it seems like a lot of the fighters in Sharps I Trust are all over the place when it comes to this fight and Yair Rodriguez's chances in it. So I will pass the baton to you, Ken Flo. Your thoughts on this featherweight title unification bout to close out International Fight Week 2023.
Well, I think the big issue with Yair Rodriguez, and I mean this in a good way, is the fact that he's extremely dangerous. And I talk about this every single time I talk about Yair Rodriguez, but his speed is just different. He moves at such a speed that it's surprising every single time I watch him fight. And, you know, if you're talking about his speed, you got to talk about his kicks. He'll throw them. You don't really see him coming. And he is absolutely fearless with what he throws and how he throws it. You know, don't think that Yair is going to be taken or overtaken by the bright lights here in this main event. He will not. He has never shown that. And as he was coming up, I remember watching him and I go, man, he's dangerous. He's got a lot of potential, but you know, does this pretty boy have durability? Does he have toughness? Does he have a chin? Unfortunately for everyone, 145 pounds, yeah, he does. He really, really does.
All right, so we already looked at tonight's MLB slate from a DFS perspective, but now we got to go on over to the sports book. I prematurely dismissed this man earlier. Gary and Thorne is here. Tanner Kern is here. Guys, we are talking best bets. Gary, we'll start with you. What's a pitcher prop that you like heading into tonight?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the under for Tyler Glasnow strikeouts. It is at even money, plus 100. Little nerve-wracking. He struck out 23 guys in his last two starts combined, but that was against the Mariners. That was against the Royals. They're not very good. The Atlanta Braves are the best offensive team in baseball. Not only are they absolutely tearing the cover off every pitch they see the last 30 days, they also have the lowest strikeout rate in baseball in that span of time at just 17.9%. Glasnow might only go 4 or 5 innings in this one with the way the Braves have been hitting. And again, they just don't strike out. So at even money, I think a guy to go under 8 strikeouts is a pretty good way to go.
All right, Tanner, hit me with your pitcher prop.
So I'm going to go with Luis Medina over 2.5 walks against the Boston Red Sox tonight. In June, Medina threw 26 innings and he walked 21 batters. That's terrible. His walk rate per 9 is 5.2. I didn't think you get that high when it comes to walking batters. Coming off his last start, he walked 5 against the White Sox, and then before that, he walked 7 against the Blue Jays, and he threw 5 innings both times there. You could make the case and say that he's probably not going to be in this game too long as the Boston Red Sox heat up, but the fact of the matter is the Athletics really aren't playing for anything. Manager Mark Kotsay is leaving his guys on the mound and letting them struggle. So they have a pitch count. They're sticking to it. He's probably going to throw 5 innings, and based on what we've seen this month, he's going to go over this total.
All right, Tanner, how about a hitter prop you're looking at? What is it?
So I'm going to stay in the same game here. I like Rafael Devers over 2.5 hits plus runs plus RBIs. I absolutely love this prop. And the biggest reason for it is Devers can hit this with one swing of the bat. He has elite power, and he's shown elite power off righties, especially this season. Medina is a righty, and I think he's going to struggle tonight. 13 of Devers' 20 home runs this season have come off righties. And when you look at Medina overall, he walks a lot of batters, but his numbers just aren't good. 2-7 with a 6.37 ERA and a 1.64 whip. His expected ERA is around 5.2, which still, he's getting unlucky, I guess, according to the ERA adjusters. But the fact of the matter is he's not pitching well no matter what. He's allowed 11 homers, and he's walked 31 batters in 53 innings. And then Devers batting .450 this month, which is amazing. 522 OBP and just 2 strikeouts in 20 plate appearances. So I think there's going to be a lot of productive at-bats for Devers tonight, and he's going to go over this total.
All right, Gary, which hitter prop are you looking at?
I'm going to go with over half a stolen base for Trey Turner. It is plus 190. You're obviously not getting the same value this season on stolen base props as you were last season, but I still like this number a lot. Turner, his bat has been heating up in general. He's getting on base a lot more than he was the first 2 months of the season. He's got 19 steals with that elite speed that we've seen throughout his entire career. But the big part of this is Sandy Alcantara cannot hold runners on. This season, they already have 14 steals against him, have been caught just twice, going back to the start of last season. And remember, the bases were smaller last season. There wasn't a restriction on how many pickoff moves you could use last season. He allowed 24 stolen bases and caught only 4 of those base runners while he was pitching. Sandy is simply one of the slowest pitchers operating out there, and it wasn't that big a deal when he was a Cy Young caliber guy. It's a huge deal now that he's struggling. I think teams go into these games against Sandy and just go, hey, if you get on base, you've got the green light. And Trey Turner will definitely have the green light.
All right, Gary, which game total is looking good to you?
Yeah, I'm going to take the under in the Pirates-Diamondbacks game. It is set at 8.5 right now. I talked last segment about Zach Gallen, how I just thought he was in a really nice spot against the Pirates. In general, they just haven't been hitting all that well. The last 14 days, they have just a 90 WRC plus. They strike out a ton. So I think Gallen gets back on track and has a really, really good start. On the other side, you just need something resembling a quality start from Rich Hill, which I know can be a little worrisome if you're betting on Rich Hill to do something positive at this point in his career. But he's actually been perfectly fine this season. If you eliminate his first 2 starts with the Pirates, which were atrocious, he's got a 3.92 ERA his last 15 trips to the mound. The Diamondbacks also have not been hitting the last 2 weeks. They've got an 80 WRC plus in that span of time. And for the season as a whole, they have struggled a lot more with left-handed pitching than they have with right-handed pitching. So I think Hill can go 5 or 6 innings, give up only 2 or 3 earned runs, and you're sitting pretty at that point.
All right, Tanner, which game total do you like?
So I'm going to go with another under. The Brewers and the Reds to go under 7.5 runs. It opened at 8 and it's been bet down to 7.5 here. And for good reason. Corbin Burns is going to take the mound for Milwaukee. He has not been great this season, but he's only allowed 80 hits in 101 innings. And when you look at this Brewers offense, they're not going to hit the ball off Andrew Abbott, in my opinion. They're 28th in batting average this season, batting just .230 as a team, and 24th in runs scored. So they really have not delivered on the offensive side of the game in any way whatsoever. When you look at Andrew Abbott, since he's been called up, he has been sensational. I think we're going to see him continue to grow in that starting pitcher role tonight for the Reds. 4-0 with a 1.21 ERA and a .88 whip. His expected ERA is right around 2.7, so still pitching very well. And he's done this off solid offenses like the Astros, the Cardinals, the Padres, and the Orioles. Cincinnati is a team that relies on offense, but I don't think they're going to have a ton of success off Burns tonight. And I like Andrew Abbott to shut down the Brewers, keeping this game under the total.
All right, Tanner, finally, favorite game bet for tonight. What is it?
So I like the Phillies on the money line against the Marlins. They're coming off a massive sweep of the Tampa Bay Rays, and that's something that not a lot of teams have been able to do, is go to Tropicana Field and find a way to win one game, let alone 3 in a week. So I love that. Zach Wheeler is going to pitch for Philadelphia tonight. Has not been great, but the thing about him is he keeps the ball in the yard. He's able to keep the ball down in the zone, and he's going to pitch against Sandy Alcantara, who I have absolutely no faith in. Gary was talking about how he can't hold runners on. He can't do a lot compared to what he did last season as a Cy Young winner. I don't even know how he went from 2022 Sandy to 2023 Sandy. It's been a massive drop-off. He's 3-7 with a 4.93 ERA and a 1.25 whip. I think the Phillies stay hot. They carry the momentum into this game, get to Alcantara, and find a way to win.
All right, Gary, what's up? What is your favorite bet for tonight?
This has been like my favorite bet all season. I'm just going to keep going back to it, which is fading the Royals on the run line. So Guardians -1.5 is plus 110 tonight. It doesn't even really matter who's pitching. I mean, Aaron Savale has been fine. He's got an ERA below 3 in his 8 starts in 2023, but this is about the Royals. Like, there are other bad teams in baseball, and yet it's the Royals who have the worst record on the run line this season at 30-58. To put that in perspective, they are covering in just 34% of their games. The next lowest mark in baseball is the Mets, who have been incredibly disappointing, and they're still covering 41% of the time. So basically, you could blindly bet this, and 2/3 of the time it works out. I'll just be doing that tonight. The Royals stink.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. I can now, with confidence, dismiss you both. Gary, and you're actually free to go for the weekend. We have one more break, one more block to go. Talking NASCAR with Jeff and Pierce next. Time to do that thing that you all like. It's Rubbins Racing time. But first, we got to talk about Shane Van Gisbergen. So he won in Chicago in his NASCAR debut. As you can see from the graphic, one career race and one career win. All right, let's bring in DraftKings contributors Pierce Dietrich and Jeff Ulrich. Fellas, gonna get your DFS and sportsbook plays for the Quaker State 400 at Walmart in Atlanta. But first, rain notwithstanding, overall thoughts on Chicago's street race here, Jeff? Saw some pileups. First-time racer, first-time winner. Are we going to see more of that in the future?
I think you're going to see more races like this in the future. Look, NASCAR got as much buzz last weekend as I can remember in a long time. And as much as the purists probably hate that track, and I know it was weird, and it was a first-time winner in his first race, it created a lot of excitement. You know, I mean, I don't like loud noises. I don't like to go to live sporting events, if I'm being dead honest. But I'm going to go see the F1 on the Vegas Strip at some point in my lifetime. I can guarantee it. And if NASCAR keeps putting on races like this in cool spots, I will probably go see a NASCAR race live as well at some point in my lifetime. I think you're going to see more of this. I really do. I think the format is cool. It created a lot of attention. It's in a major urban center. Do they need to get the tracks a little bit more cleaner? Yeah, they probably do, but they'll work on it. I think it's a really good idea, and I think you will see more of it.
Pierce, I can tell from your face that you hated it.
I do. I'm tired of the gimmicks. I love professional wrestling. That's where the gimmicks should stay, but keep the gimmicks out of my sports. The dirt
Wrestling's
race
real,
is a joke. The road course. I will give them credit though. It is a gimmick. But they tried to make it a decent race by eliminating the stages this year in the road courses. That's helped a lot. They made the wise decision of doing single file restarts. I imagine they're going to do that at future road courses. It creates a little bit more of a pure racing, and it stops a lot of these pileups into turn one. So I'll give them credit there. But Jeff's right. There's just going to be more and more gimmicks. And I've been saying this forever. We will have turtle shells. We will have banana peels. It's going to happen.
Yes. Okay, back to our regularly scheduled NASCAR programming, where we only turn left, 0, 90-degree turns, and fingers crossed no rain in Atlanta. Top DFS play this week. Pierce, what do we think?
Well, here's a reminder. Atlanta is now a plate track, but if you are looking for guys that have been good at super speedways and plate tracks, Blaney, Logano, Hamlin, statistically, they're the best when we're talking about a top 10 finishing rate. And that's what you really need. Guys that are going to survive, guys that are going to finish inside the top 10. But for the most part, the rules are simple. At Atlanta, Daytona, and Talladega, it gets hairy. There's big wrecks, and you just play the guys starting in the back. So the top plays are going to be the drivers that qualify towards the back. They might be cheap drivers. It's just survival. It's attrition. Atlanta hasn't been as volatile as Daytona and Talladega, but it's going to get there. I think on Sunday night, we're going to see some mayhem.
All right, Jeff, what do we think? Top DFS play this week?
Yeah, absolutely. I love the super speedway races because Pierce just talks about the race and doesn't mention any drivers ever. He is right, though. You can leave a lot of salary on the table. There's going to be a lot of guys in the 7K range. It's a week when you're building, you could potentially leave $2,000 out. I like Ryan Blaney at the top. He's under 10K in price. Ryan Blaney is just, Pierce, actually, I think he was maybe the one guy he did mention there. But he's just really good on super speedways. He's got 3 top 8 finishes on those kind of tracks this year. He was 8th at Atlanta earlier in the season. He's got a bunch of top 5s. Won this race in 2021 as well, as I should probably mention. So Ryan Blaney's been driving well. He's just a good super speedway racer, and he's under 10K in price. Really no problem there. I really don't have a problem with the other R there, Ross Chastain, my guy at 9,400. He's driving well. He's been just extremely fast in a lot of different types of races lately. I think both those guys at under 10K, but with so many cheap drivers, whoever you like at the top, Joey Logano, Chase Elliott, you can get them in there and still have a ton of room. So, it's definitely a week to just kind of pick and choose, spread out at the top, and then take some shots with some guys in the 7K range.
All right, Jeff, what's your best bet on the DK Sportsbook for this race?
I really like Austin Cindric this week. I think that if you look at Austin Cindric plus 2,800, extremely fair price. Again, this is a driver who started second in Atlanta earlier in the season. He finished 11th there, but he's got some really good finishes in these kind of races. You can get him for top 5 as well for plus 350. He should be pushing for a win, needs it to qualify for the playoffs. You can get him also at Group C at plus 400. He's got the biggest odds in that group. And it's a good week just to take the guys at the back because there's so many crashes. I like Austin Cindric just all around top 5 to win and in his group as well.
Pierce, best bet on the DK Sportsbook, what is it?
Curly Joy plus 3,000, 2 top 5s at Atlanta. Eric Almirola plus 3,000. He has 2 plate track wins. You could also look at Ryan Preece, his teammate, who's been a solid plate racer. And if you want to go a little bit deeper, Austin Hill has been a solid plate racer in the lower series.
All right, quickly, before we leave, Pierce, Max Verstappen wins last week in Austria, Red Bull with the double podium. But perhaps more importantly, Leclerc gets second finally for Ferrari. So what do you think? Looking at Ferrari to continue their improvement or back to a Red Bull bet in England?
Yeah, you just keep betting Red Bull. They're already on top of practice in FP1 and FP2. Yeah, you can't stop Red Bull. At some point, they're going to build for 2024, and they'll leave the door open a little bit. Maybe somebody else will win, but that hasn't opened yet. Right now, they want to win this race in Silverstone.
All right, good work, fellas. That is a show. That'll do it for us here at The Sweat. We'll be back Monday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, and Emerson will hopefully be with me. See you then.